Good morning, insiders. We are so glad that you are here, and I'm especially glad because, man, we have got an episode for you today. This is going to be a extra special edition, or an extra special edition, depending on what part of the United States you're from. We've had a couple of these episodes at this point, but today is going to be unique in that we're inviting someone very important to the team at Invo Solutions to the Invo Studios to share with you his wisdom and insight when it comes to product development within our software company. And I'm very excited about this. So, first things first, this edition, special edition, something that is important to me. As we continue to expand this platform, this is an opportunity for you as an insider to learn a little bit more, not just from the experts of who's using our technology in the field, but also who is behind that technology. And this is really kind of episode one of a series that we'll have over the next couple of years from those that are influencing just not even just the product of the company, how we do things here at Invo Solutions. We get asked a lot about, how do you guys develop your product? How do you develop your solutions? In addition to that, how do you take care of your clients? How do you guys establish a culture within the company? How do you do marketing and advertising? We're going to unpack each one of those things over this series, if you will. Today, though, we're focusing specifically on probably the most commonly asked question that we get from potential new clients, which is, how does Invo Solutions develop their products? How do you go about scoping out a new product, a new feature? How do you even decide on what new product you're going to bring to market? And so, the man behind that curtain is going to be joining us today, and I couldn't be more excited about that. So to kick off this series of special editions, I'm fortunate enough to have Andrew Buchanan, Director of Product, joining us today. And now typically what I would do is give a long-winded introduction for our guests. And today I'm going to actually let you hear that directly from him. So this is the official introduction of Andrew Buchanan, Director of Product. Andrew, would you mind to introduce yourself to all the insiders who have not had the fortunate opportunity to meet you yet?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jake. I really appreciate that short introduction. But I also appreciate the opportunity to come in and introduce myself, talk about how we work, talk about how I work, and talk about how Invo is paving our way to the future. So a little bit about me. I'm from Springfield, Missouri. I've tried many times to get out of this town, but I just keep coming back to it. And now I've laid some really good roots with 2 boys and a wife, and our family is complete and loving life right now. I've got one going into high school and one that's 9, almost 10. And so they keep me running around like crazy. My introduction kind of into my professional life is did not think that I would be in software whatsoever. So really thought that I was going to be sticking into the middle management, the business sector. That's what I went to school for. That's what I thought my path was, and was introduced to software while I was at an insurance company of all places, and has just taken off from there. I'm not the most techie of tech guys. I'm the one that's really excited about tech, but I'm not the one that's going to dig in and actually look at the zeros and ones and stuff like that. But I love getting people together to solve those types of really difficult problems. So.
That's awesome. Yeah. Why don't you share a little bit about your background? And I'll let you get as much in the detail as you would like. And we've had some guests that have come on with us that literally started where a spark hit them in high school. But I think for everyone here to know a little bit about you specifically, share a little bit about your professional career, up back as far as you want to, but then bringing you into the role that you currently have here at Invo.
So yeah, let's go back a little bit ways to when I was first introduced to kind of software development and stuff like that. So my first experience was when I was with an insurance company and I was working as a quality assurance analyst. Okay. Now, quality assurance, it's a key buzzword within the software space, but not a lot of people understand what it is. So basically my job was to test the software in such a way that before it got out to the customers, we were, making sure all the bugs were fixed, all the enhancements were done up to specifications and things like that. And that was actually great. I loved the process of doing that. But as I got further and further into software and understood what it looked like, I realized that there were I was informed that there was two kind of paths for how you develop software. One of them was a waterfall path, and one of them was an agile path. Agile was somewhat new. It was created in the early 2000s with a way to do how you put together software, how you get requirements, all that kind of stuff. Well, the company that I was working for was strictly a waterfall, where what would happen is requirements would come through from a group and they would get thrown over or thrown down the waterfall to another group. That group would then develop it or, do whatever they needed to do based on the information they got from the first group. And then once they were done, they would throw it down to the other group, and so on and so on and so on. And typically the quality assurance analysts were the last person to get it. And we were so far removed, though, from the people at the very beginning that actually created the specifications that we ran into these problems. Like, we would get it, and we're like, wait a minute, this actually doesn't do what we thought it was going to do. Or halfway through the specs, it was changed by another group or this. And so it was really difficult to actually access and understand the change management system that they had within that process. And so I want to say that for software. Now, waterfall actually works really well in other industries. One of my greatest examples of this is airplanes. We want the waterfall process within airplanes because we want all the specifications done at the beginning. We want all the wings to be the certain size and the engines to be a certain size. We don't want the agile process to be in planes because we want them to be designed well. The way that software works within the agile process is very iterative. We want to change as we go because we want to listen to customers. We want to listen to our developers. We want to listen to our quality assurance analysts. Like if I get into something and I look at specs as a QA and I'm looking at it and say, this doesn't make sense. It's not intuitive. It's not easy to follow. The documentation is not good. We should be able to change it on the fly. And so that started mine about 15, 16 years ago. That's where I started at, where we were developing that. When I was in the waterfall process, we were trying to go to an agile process within that software team that I was on, and it was terrible. Changing from waterfall to agile is very difficult. You think you're doing agile by using certain words or certain techniques, but if you're not wholeheartedly an agile shop, then you still have all these things that creep in from a waterfall perspective that make things difficult. So it was really difficult to do that. It was frustrating at times. We weren't very good. We weren't fast. And that's one of the things that the Agile methodology wants us to do, is wants us to be able to break it into small spots or small chunks and then go really fast and work through it.
Sure.
And so I was able to actually move on to another 2 or 3 companies after that, where we were a full agile shop, where everything we did was agile and everything we did was to the point of everything, every little minute process and breaking down was, hey, we have to fit this into the agile framework. And at the beginning, that was extremely fun. Like, it was like, oh my gosh, we can change anything. We can change everything. Yeah. The problem is we got too far removed from our customers that way, because we were kind of in a vacuum. We were in a box, and we were like, we would, have regularly 2-week, 3-week meetings with customers, but we were changing things so quickly that once we got back to the customer was like, hey, listen, you guys are changing so much stuff. Some of it's good, some of it's bad.
Sure.
And we weren't getting that feedback loop. So here at Invo, I'm trying to get the in-between of that agile. We don't want to be all the way waterfall, but we don't want to be all the way where I call micro agile, where it's like we're doing all these little bitsy things. And that is where my professional career has taken me. So I've been a QA in this. I've been a team lead in this. I was an agile coach for a while. So I was able to look at the process management of agile and how we figure out, hey, what goes first, what goes second. And that's actually what led me to here. Being an agile coach, working through processes with teams on how we manage things, how can we be more efficient? How can we make sure that the thing that we're working on is the most important thing today and not the most important thing tomorrow? How do we manage that? That's what got me here to Invo, where I'm actually able to establish that within our teams now. So making sure that bugs that reported, hey, is this bug a top priority bug, a low priority bug, a mid bug? What is it? Is this enhancement going to help one customer? Is it going to help 15 customers? Those types of conversations is what we're having right now.
Yeah. So if there's one thing that you guys are probably already picking up from out of the gate is just how passionate Andrew is. And you're going to hear that probably as we continue to have more conversations and we continue to dig in. You know, I think about the expertise that you brought when you came on board, Andrew, a little over a year ago now. You know, we had at that point been in development for our platform we have today for several years. And, you know, we had been fortunate to launch, you know, quite a few products along the way and get ourselves through successful launches. And you see, well, how do we continue to maybe evaluate improving some of those things? And because everything that we'd done up until that point was fantastic. And it's like, how do we continue to refine those? And I think that was the expertise that we saw in you when we were looking at bringing you in and that capacity. And the processes that you already were had an expertise within, I think was what we saw as being very attractive. And we're already seeing the fruits of that labor. So many of the clients and many of the insiders that are here are using or are continuing to implement things that you had your fingerprints on and that you were able to use our dev team to achieve some great things with. So great job there. I think you're doing a fantastic job. Like I said, your passion is very tangible. One of the things that I think is really cool also is to see how passionate you are about personal things. So we're going to go straight real talk real quick. Andrew Buchanan had a theme song. What would that be?
Oh man. I'm kind of a music, oh man, I'm all over the place on music. So, I like a lot of like lo-fi stuff. I grew up in the grunge era of the 90s.
Well, I heard a rumor you were more of a yacht rock kind of guy.
Man,
you know, something like I can just picture you on the deck of a yacht somewhere in the Caribbean.
Oh yeah.
Just
I've got a boat by Lonely Island, maybe.
Playing.
I don't know. But no, like, so I think of a theme song when I think of that. I think of something that describes me. And so there's a really obscure band called Hocus Pick. They've got a song called This Is Me, and it talks basically about how someone ebbs and flows through a week. They start off strong, things are going well, then they hit lows, and how they react to that, and they come back high. And that's me. That describes who I am, how I flow through the week. I'm typically a pretty positive guy, and so I want to be able to flow through a week, knowing that, hey, things might get hard, but it's not going to be a big deal. So
Hocus Pick. I feel like you just made that name up. I'll be honest with you, I'm not familiar with that artist, but I'm going to have to go find that later. See what Spotify tells me about that. I think it'll be good. I think about, if we get back on track for some serious conversation here, probably why the insiders are really here, not to hear about your theme song, but maybe they might be hitting you offline about that, which I totally encourage them to do that. But let's just talk about your approach to software development, specifically about managing teams. And so the team that you came into was a very high producing team. And we've been very fortunate. I talk about this all the time in that we have Xers on the team, and most of the time they're like Generation X, and I'm like, no, they all are output at a level that's 2, 3, 4, 5, or even 10x, you know, what a normal individual would be in a certain capacity. So you already had high performers when you came in and took over the team. But I'm curious about your perspectives on managing and leading software development teams. You could share some of your past experience, what your perspectives were coming in here, and maybe even if you're willing to share a little bit about what you would think about the future as we continue to grow in Invo.
Absolutely. So managing people is hard. I don't want to ever. I've talked with people in the past that have said, "Oh, it's just people, you know, that you can mold them to whatever you need to do or something like that." I don't believe. I mean, for me, maybe it's more difficult, but I put a lot of pressure on myself to try to make sure I manage people like people instead of like numbers or resources and stuff like that. My dad was a middle manager for a long time, for 30 plus years. And that's something that he instilled in me as well. Like, people are people first, and then their employees second. So that's something that I try to lead with. I try to lead with grace. I try to lead with that kind of mindset to make sure that I don't treat them just like the computers that they're working on. I treat them like the people that are putting the work in.
Sure.
The second part of that is just within software. So I would hope that most software engineers would agree with me. Software engineers are kind of weird sometimes. They work with machines. They are more interested lots of times in the nuts and bolts of the machines than maybe I am or maybe other people are, and that's perfectly fine. That's their niche, and that's what makes them excel. And I love that about them. I love to see them solve very complicated problems. And so you have to understand that. You have to understand and give freedom. That's one of the things that I've learned so far into it. So when I was a QA, I loved to have the freedom to make my own plan, to then execute my plan, but then also have someone that had my back so that could check up on me and see if my plan was actually good or not. So that's one of the things I really encourage with my team is, hey, I have an idea, or hey, there's maybe a problem and I want you to come up with a solution. I'm not going to dictate, especially since I'm not the technical expertise in this area. I'm never going to dictate, this is how you need to solve this problem. Now, I'm interested in how they're solving the problem. I'm going to ask questions, and lots of times they're dumb questions, and that's fine. I'm really good at asking dumb questions. And so I want to make sure that they have the freedom to go through that process within their own way. I'm a process guy. I really like process, but when you get into managing the process of a person's creativity, that's way too far. And so I always want to be able to encourage and say, hey, we need this solution. How can we get this done? One of the hard things, though, with software especially, is that no matter what problem you have, there are probably 30 different ways to solve it.
Oh, yeah.
Different languages, different tech, different just ways you can write a component or whatever like that. And so my main job is saying, hey guys, there's 30 ways you can fix this. 10 of them don't work. Like, let's say they work half the time, but they're kind of brittle. Okay, so now we got 20. 5 of them will take you 5 weeks, like a huge amount of time. But boy, the fix will be awesome. But we don't have that kind of time. So back to what I'm always dealing with process. I'm always trying to prioritize our rate of return. Hey, is this solution going to be the best solution, going to be the best solution for right now, or best solution for in the future? And we always have to manage those expectations. We're kind of in that process right now with some of our current stuff. We're rewriting some of our back-end stuff. A lot of that stuff is stuff that we could push off. Right. But we've made a decision to say, hey, listen, I know it might take 5 or 6 weeks, but we got to do this now, because if we don't, it's going to take us 8 or 9 weeks. If we wait 6 months or we wait a year or something like that. So there's always that process, but making sure that my dev team can tell me and converse with me and say, hey, this is a bad idea or this is a good idea. And then I ask the why. Why is this a good idea? Why is this a bad idea? To get them to lead me to where they need us to go is huge for us in the management space.
Oh, that's good. I'd like to stay there for just a second, if you don't mind, and dive in a little bit deeper. I think one of the things that sticks out the most to me that we have really focused in on is, even at the genesis of an idea or the genesis of a new feature, if you will, something that the team will be working on, going back to your reference there, is scoping out what we're going to do. We have been, I would say, successful at accomplishing everything we've done up until this point. And I think one of the things we've learned as we continue to have requests from clients, requests from even internally at the team, things that we might see in pre-sales, that we're doing a much better job, I would say better than we ever have today, of scoping out whatever that thing is. Talk to me a little bit about your perspectives on proper scope, why scoping is important when it comes to feature or product development, and anything else you'd like to share there.
Absolutely. And it really goes back to the whole waterfall versus agile approach. So scoping within waterfall is done at the very beginning. Before we even write a single line of code, it is done so far in advance, and you have weeks, maybe even months of scoping. In Agile, we don't have that luxury. We want to be able to scope at the last responsible moment, where we say, hey, this is an issue. What is it going to take for us to actually fix that issue? And then we talk about how's the plan to deploy it and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I think early on when I first started here, we had done a very good job of scoping, but it was scoping for tomorrow. We were scoping today and working on it tomorrow.
Sure.
And as our customer base has increased, as the complexity of our code base has increased, that doesn't make sense anymore. So what we're doing now is we've rewritten kind of how we scope things, where we have a 5-phase scoping process where we get customer feedback. We understand, hey, is this a good business decision for us? And what goes into that is like, hey, does one customer want this? Or does 15 customers want this? Like, that's a huge plus for us because yes, we value all of our customers and we want to provide something for what they want and what they want for the rate of return. But if we build something that takes us 9 weeks, 10 weeks to build, that we've scoped out, it's great, it's glorious, but then we only have adoption of one, that is not a huge return for us or for the customer base. Like, all of these customers are feeding in what they need. So we're looking for those big bangs. Hey, what can we do that all of these customers need? So we get feedback. That's phase one, is just feedback from customers. So our biz dev team is getting feedback. Our developers and support are getting feedback from, hey, this would be an awesome enhancement request. Can you do this? Can you do that? So we go through phase one. Then phase two is more of a, hey, how can we do this? Can we actually build it? And that's where we bring in the dev team and we talk about what language are we going to do this for? What version are we going to do this for? When do we want to deploy this? How can we do it? Because we do a roadmap. And if things aren't fitting in a roadmap, it's not good for us. Like, we can't cram something that's going to take 6 weeks in to a roadmap for a quarter that's already full. That doesn't make any sense. We have to pull things out to put something in. Then phase three is the easy part for us, really. We've already scoped it. We've created all of that stuff for it, all the work. Now let's do the work. And that's where the dev team really gets to be creative and really gets to solve these problems for us. In that phase two scoping, we're mapping out most of the work for the dev team, but we always know that once we get into something, there's always going to be these little hiccups where it's like, hey, we thought it was going to work like this, but it doesn't. It works like this. And so we make sure to adjust to that. And then phase 4 and 5 is all about deployment. Hey, how can we test this in phase 4? Huge amount of testing is going into our new feature releases. So that way they're clean, they're competent, and they're bug free. We want to make sure that when we send something out to new customers, they're not expecting bugs to be a part of it. They want to expect quality and excellence. And then phase 5 is the easy part. That's the deployment. It's easy on our end. It may be scary sometimes for getting new features and new deployments out to new customers, but that is just the natural process. When I started here, it was very scope today, actually get it out tomorrow. Now we're looking into, hey, scope today, and let's look to the future of when this can actually improve our product.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. And I think you're really illuminating, I think, for the insiders that are here, a little bit more about the insight behind the decisions that are made and the processes that you've got in place to bring product to them, and also listening, right? So whenever ideas are coming in, and you and I talk about this all the time, we have no shortage of ideas, right? So between pre-sales, internally, what we want to do as a leadership team, and then also what our clients are telling us that they see or that they wanted to do or they identify, which, to be fair, we also talk about that's our best source of R&D, right? But how do we evaluate and make those decisions? I think that process really helps to vet that out. Well, we really started to dive in really deep, even faster than I probably thought we would up front, which I love. But let's kind of pull back for just a second, kind of come back out into the sky and talk a little bit about software development in general. And so I think that one of the things that I know you have visibility to and that we're interested in, that maybe some of our clients and prospects aren't really thinking about, is how does software development typically happen? And so what I'm curious if you're willing to share, and if you've got thoughts or feedback on, where do you see the direction of software development going? Is it ever changing? Do you feel like what we've got now is how it's always going to be? So think about strategies, progression within software development, agnostic to industry, not just financial, but just in general. Do you have thoughts or opinions or any insight into that?
Oh, I always have opinions. I would say that software is never going to stop changing. There are already things that I never thought would be possible 5 years ago are here, and things that I never even thought would be talked about now are being talked about for tomorrow. Like, it moves so fast, and it's very cliche, but software moves at the speed of light. Like, it's hugely volatile all the time.
Yep.
The big thing right now, and I'll go ahead and say it, is AI. AI is a huge buzzword, not within just the financial industry, but like you said, industry agnostic. It's everywhere. And I will give my opinion on this, and this bleeds a little bit through Invo as well, but AI right now is a buzzword, and it is something that should be, looked at cautiously. I'm excited about it. I think the potential behind AI is absolutely astronomical, but I also believe that the potential for it to go wrong is also there as well. And so I'm always interested in it. I want to see how we can integrate it within our platform, but we're also taking a step back and saying, hey, listen, we need to have some guardrails around this so that we can actually deploy this in a good and safe way. There's ChatGPT is the king right now of what we can do, and it kind of has all the buzz as well. But like, there are options out there, I believe, that are going to be really close in the future that will be a better solution for our customers and for Invo, that will help us do it in a way that will be safe and secure. I think of the industries. I think of this when I think of AI. Think of all the things that, and I'm going to mention a few in the last few years that have really risen to buzz category and then kind of faded off, like crypto, NFTs, metaverse, etc. Like those things all rose up. Everybody thought those are going to be all in. Now they're still here, but they're not to the edge that they were. And so it's always this peak thing with software where it comes in, something makes a huge splash, and then it fades away a little bit. And then you understand more about it. Once it fades away and you understand more about it, I think that's really where it really gets real for people. We can actually bolt into something. We can actually do something with this. So we're waiting for that to come down a little bit. Maybe there's other providers. Maybe there's different solutions for that. And we're always looking and we're always investigating for that kind of stuff. The other industry-wide thing, data and cloud are still king, in my opinion. AI is making this big splash, but data and cloud are still the things that drive businesses. Moving, especially the financial industry, moving that to the cloud is still something that every customer we talk with is doing that. It's either on their this year roadmap, 2-year, 3-year roadmap, or whatever. That is something that's still there. And then data. I remember, I don't know, this is going to date me a little bit. I remember 10 years ago, IBM was launching this huge campaign about big data, big data, big data, big data. And even then it was kind of like, what is big data? I don't get it. Now big data is more than just, hey, you can use this. It's like, hey, here are specific ways you can use this. And combining that with cloud, is uber exciting. It's costly as well. We're finding that out a lot within our industry and with our customers, but it's super exciting to be able to pinpoint not only Invo and how we can help out more members and more customers, but helping out our financial institutions and even other industries on like, how can we target what we make to those customers in a good way, that gets that rate of return that's huge and get customer interaction up the roof and things like that. We're seeing a lot of benefit from that, which is awesome. And the last thing I'll say is about IT and just software development in general. Organic growth is always better than big bang. That's something that I have found here at Invo. We are growing organically, growing through our customers organically, but growing as a team organically. And the fruits of that are just unimaginable when I see other friends of mine in industries, other firms that blow up. They get huge really fast. The Agile methodology kind of lends itself to saying, hey, you can get 25 people in a room tomorrow, and with Agile, they can all start working. And I think that's true to a certain extent. But there's always, just like what I was talking about, these big things that come up and they kind of fall down. That's what we're seeing within the industry. Companies that are coming in, they're blowing up, they're getting huge really fast, they're bloated, and then they come down. And that coming down part is the hardest part about that. Here at Invo, we have made a particular strategic decision to be able to say, hey, we're growing organically. We're not going to put all our eggs in one basket. We're not going to blow this thing up and get 35 more developers tomorrow. We're going to grow as we need. And our customers are seeing that because we can support them better. We can build the features that they want better. And we're making sure that we prioritize the right things first.
Yeah, that's really good. I think about and it's hard not to compare. So I'm not asking you to do that, but have the perspective of how we're doing things, how you've seen it evolve, and just kind of asking you how you've seen it mature. Maybe that's the right word, over the last decade, and then in the direction we kind of see what's the crystal ball telling us for what's next. If you were to identify maybe a player or multiple players in software development, regardless of where they're operating, who would you say is doing it best right now, or that would be, say, doing it the best? Maybe not best overall, but doing it really well.
Oh man, I think AWS is king. AWS is shifting. We're seeing that they are shifting kind of their model a little bit, where they used to just go for big fish in big ponds.
Sure.
And now they're adjusting a little bit where they're saying, hey, we like the mid-sized fish in those big ponds as well. We're seeing a lot more adoption from the mid-sized level FIs, mid-sized level software development companies, and stuff like that, where AWS is there and ready and available for us. Which is great. I think that's going to be a huge mover in this space for allowing people to get to the cloud faster, but also some of that big data as well, like being able to implement those things with a secure and with a trusted company like AWS is going to be huge. Apple is always up there with me. I'm not an Apple guy.
That's a heck of a statement from an Android user.
I have an Android phone. Right, I really like my Google phone, but
we will get Andrew there eventually.
I have Apple everything else. I have an iPad. I have a Mac and stuff like that. But Apple is always an industry leader for me on just how they launch products. So from a software development space, I've never seen a tutorial from Apple on how to use anything. And that frustrates me, but also that is hugely beneficial in my opinion. They have been able to build over the last 20 years intuitive software where you don't need a tutorial on how to fix something or how to do something. Just through your natural use of the product, you are shown how things work. I would love to get Invo to that point. Now, Apple has a lot more experience in that, and we're learning every time we release something on how we can do that. But that's the gold standard on how you release intuitive software. That's something that I want to do and provide for our FIs, but also the FIs customers and members that use the product. How can we do this in a way that's really easy for them to use? One of the other ones that is always pushing the envelope, no matter how you feel about maybe the person that owns it, but Tesla and SpaceX, I absolutely love their industry model of pushing the envelope. I've never seen a company been more bold of being able to say, hey, we're gonna put our money where our mouth is, and I don't care if this blows up, literally, and like, we lose millions of dollars. Other than those two companies, like they are the gold standard, in my opinion, of pushing the envelope and saying, hey, we're going to try something new. We're going to try something different. We're also going to be the ones that if someone says, hey, don't do that, it's too hard, they're going to be like, well, now I'm going to even do it harder.
Yeah, sounds like a challenge.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that about kind of their mindset and how they push the envelope on those things. So those three, AWS, Apple, Tesla, and SpaceX, those three are the ones that, in my opinion, even in the software space, are really pushing the envelope all the time.
Yeah, I think those are great examples, and each one of them is unique as well. But I will never forget the first time that I opened an Apple product and there was not an instruction manual in it. And this may be my perspective, but I think it was one of the very first companies. They were one of the very first companies to take that approach. And because you talked about dating yourself, going back 10 years, I'll go even further back. So I remember when I bought the very first iPod. And for our young listeners, are like, what the heck is he saying iPad wrong? No, iPod, the very first, MP3 player that really kind of formalized what an MP3 player was. I bought one for my wife. She was a runner, and I was like, this is perfect. And you're going to love having music on here that doesn't skip, right? But you open that up, and it had an instruction manual, and it told you what all the buttons did and how to use it. And then the next device that that I purchased, or that she purchased, I can't remember which one it was the very first iPhone. And it came with nothing. It was in a box. First of all, they revolutionized how you unbox a product, right? And the packaging and all that. but you opened it, launched the software, and they began a series of evolution of doing things that no one else had ever done. I think that's a really good example. And I know that that's something that you believe in strongly here as well, is how do we do something different, and not just for the sake of doing something different, but because it means as you have an opportunity to do something better and innovative. Um, that's awesome. I love that. I love the feedback. And I think it would be cool just also maybe just for the insiders to learn a little bit more about Andrew, the person. You're learning a lot about your perspective. So I'm going to introduce something that it's going to absolutely frustrate our audio listeners, because I'm going to use some visual show and tell, but I'm going to hold up this world class trophy, belt, I suppose, that you won, and I would like for you to share with the insiders why you were worthy of collecting this world championship belt.
Absolutely.
It's
That was
incredible.
that's near and dear to my heart. So I appreciate you bringing that up. So we were cordially invited to a 90s night trivia. And because I was born in the 80s, 90s were kind of my jam, and learning how to come up in that age. And so I was able to go with some people here at work and be able to participate in that. And we as a table absolutely dominated the first session, and then we quickly faded. There were 3 sessions. I think we dominated the first one, and we didn't hardly score any points the second and third, which was awesome. But for the belt, they asked for volunteers from every table, and I'm not shy for volunteering. I volunteered and went up to the front, and I did not know what I had volunteered for, and I had volunteered for a dance-off of
Of
the
course you did.
Macarena.
Of course you
So, hey, the Macarena is one of my all-time favorite songs, just because the movements are easy.
I heard a
and,
rumor that was your first dance at your wedding. Is that true?
Maybe
Okay,
I
okay.
might have been. I don't know.
May or may not be true.
And so, yeah, I was up there, and to say that the line was lifeless would have been kind. And so I decided that, let's make a name for Invo and for me. And so I dominated the Macarena dance, went up there shaking everything that God gave me, and was able to win the prize and walk away with a belt. So there you go.
That's wonderful. Yeah. And if we can find that footage, we'll insert it into this in post. So just fair
I think
warning.
Brent has something that's probably in there.
That's true. That's true. We may need to use that in a promo.
Yeah.
Let's take it back to product and keep everybody on here as they start to hit stop and get off of the podcast at this point. I'm curious, when we talk about strategic planning, which is very important to me, and we really look at what are we going to be working on in the next 12 months, the next 36 months, the 48 months and on, that we get real intentional about what those timeframes are, what the goals are within those timeframes. So I want to kind of take you to a space of being conceptual for a second. So if we were in a situation where we were able to equip you with an unlimited budget, and you were able to take the team that you have today to a team that you might have in your mind as the ideal development team for Invo Solutions, what would that look like for you?
That's a good question. I think the biggest, when you're developing product, the biggest thing is just time. Time is hard. And so I think with as much time or money, you can accomplish anything you want. So to mitigate some of that stuff, it's always about people. So what I'd love to do, and we talked about this earlier about being organic, I would love to grow organically to where in the next 1 to 3 years, I have doubled my size of my development team. So right now we've got 5 developers. And I want to be able to double that size, because we've got some big plans for in the future, for taking the Invo platform. Where are we taking it from a technology perspective? Where are we taking it from a industry perspective? Where are we taking these things? And so we've got some big ideas. Like you said earlier, we're never short on ideas, but we want to make sure and grow organically in that. So if time wasn't an issue or anything like that, I think we want to double. We'd also want to get out there more. I think the big thing here is Invo is Invo, and we are not ashamed of what we are, and we want to be able to get in front of as many people as possible. Yeah. So I think that especially in the software industry space, there are a lot of people that have solutions that people just don't know about.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing for me. I every time we end up going to a conference, it seems like people are like, "Who are you guys?" And we're like, "How do you not know who we are, man? We're here all the time. We've got the best merch. We've got the best stuff. We've got the best tower at all these conventions. Like, come on, how do you not know us yet?" I mean, we're always shown up and saying, "Hey, we don't know who you are yet." But then once they find out who we are, I mean, it just lights up all across their faces and all across us. We are excited about doing business with others. And so those are the two biggest things that I would say in the future is growing our dev team so we could better, solve problems, work on these things that we're really wanting to do in the future. And then just getting our name out there and getting our faces out in front of more and more people.
I think that's good. So if we could just stay there for a second, I think that, what comes to mind when you share that insight is a strategy I had never heard of that you actually put in front of me. And if I recall, it even included a marker and a whiteboard so that you could draw it for me visually, which I love. And that is developing teams within the team and how we evolve as a company to become, I think, faster at innovating, better at, developing to the scope that we've established. If you wouldn't mind to even get into that level of detail and explain, because right now, and maybe share how we're doing things today, and then what your vision for an ideal team would be to evolve towards that teams within a teams approach.
Yeah. Okay. So that's actually a great question, because right now we have kind of a smaller team. And so what we want to do is, as we grow organically, like I mentioned earlier, we want to grow that team. But just like a financial space, financial business, like a bank, you have pods that work in certain industries or certain business pods of your actual business. And so we want to do that here. As we grow, right now we have all these cross-trained individuals that they can work on anything and everything. And as our software development team grows, maybe we can break some of these people off and say, "Hey, listen, maybe this is an area or a feature that we need some expertise or some focus on it so that we can do that." Then we have this other pod over here that deals with maybe support issues, or maybe deals with small and feature enhancements for a certain version or something like that.
Yeah.
And as I've grown here, and as this company has grown, we figured out that we can't do, just like I talked about earlier, we can't do the scope today and do tomorrow. We don't have the opportunity to do that because of our customer base and because of the complexity of our code, which is fine, which is a very organic and natural thing. So we want to be able to say, "Hey, we've got a big idea and we want to build that." Well, we actually need to build that over here, outside of our day-to-day stuff. And right now, we don't have the opportunity to do that because everybody is doing everything, which is exactly where we need to be right now. So as we grow a little bit, and as we pick up these big ideas, these big enhancements, these features that are not only going to change our platform, but change the way our customers use our platform, that's what we're looking towards, where we can say, "Hey, I want you to get in a room and I want you to solve this problem. Be creative about it." And the last piece I'll say about that, the benefit of doing that is we have a more focused approach with our customer base. When we do that, when we have a big idea, we're not doing that in a vacuum. Jake and I aren't sitting in a room and saying, "Hey, this is our idea. It's going to be great." We're not the smartest people. We need to get the smartest people in that room with us. And so we want to engage customers and say, "Hey, this feature you requested, can we even make that bigger? Can we do something better with that? Hey, is this a solution that you're interested in?" We want to get buy-in from our customers. We want to get 5 people bought into it, not just 1.
Yeah.
That's the approach that we want to do. And if we do that, if we break off this smaller group, we working directly with the customers, this product is going to be exactly what the customers want. I have worked in a lot of industries and a lot of projects in the past where we build something and it's about 80% of what the customer wants. And there's that extra 20% that's just fluff. It's wasted effort on my dev's side, and it's a frustrating effort from the customer side. We want to get a 10 of 10. We want to get 100% of what the customer wants. And we also want to be able to have those conversations with those customers so that the customer can say, "Hey, to pick a really bad analogy, but like, I really want this to be blue. This color needs to be blue." Well, the developers, as we are developing it, if we can't get it to be blue because there's some, technology restriction or something like that, hey, listen, we can't get it to be blue, but can we get it to be a dark shade of green? That is a conversation that is much better early in the process or in the middle of the process than late in the process. We don't want to give that green at the end and the customer's like, whoa, you told me this was going to be blue. And we're like, well, it's kind of bluish. Like, we don't want to have that. We want to be able to involve those customers early on in the process. That way they know and they have input. If they say, hey, listen, if you can't make it blue, make it red. Like, that's a completely different thing. But cool. If that's what you want, we're going to build what the customer wants.
Yeah. I think that's great. Yeah, and I appreciate you just kind of diving in a little bit further there. I think that's really helpful just for the listeners to kind of understand a little bit more about your philosophies around that. Kind of just staying in that arena for a little bit longer. Something that is a personal conviction of mine is bringing on talent to Invo that fills the gaps for areas where I lack wisdom, or I lack experience. Which, depending on who you ask, will tell you there's a lot of gaps that I need to fill. So, but for me, and you and I've had a lot of conversations about this, and it's if I've got an idea or a vision for something, I need good leadership who can say, okay, well, here's how we're going to get there. And I think that for me, that's one of the things you really helped impact immediately out of the gate, was the ability to put something in place to accomplish whatever that idea, that vision was. And so I'm curious for you, if we talk about that from Andrew's perspective, maybe what are some of your personal convictions about leadership in general, or leading a team of developers from your seat? What do you say are some personal convictions that you might have about leadership or the vision of leadership?
Leadership is hard because, it's interesting when you are leader by title or leader without a title. And, there's a lot of leadership training. There's opportunities for leadership. There are people that tell you, oh, you're such a great leader, or maybe you're not such a great leader. Like, there are opportunities everywhere to lead. And when I think of a leader, I always think of the person riding the white horse. That's the kind of leader that I think of. And then as I've gone through my career, the leaders that make the biggest impact for me are the ones that do the day-to-day stuff. Like you said, like if there's a vision and no one knows how to solve it, if someone takes the reins and is able to say, hey, listen, I don't know how to solve this either, but I'm going to dig in and I'm going to try. So that's the conviction that I always have is, hey, how am I going to be remembered in this conversation that's maybe 2 weeks later? Am I going to be the person, the negative Nancy, that looks at it and says, man, I don't want to do this. This is stupid. Yeah. Or am I going to be the person that's like, Brent can do it, Ryan can do it, I've got too much on my plate? Or am I going to be the person that says, hey, listen, I'll try to fit this in. I don't know what you exactly want, but I'll dig in with you. I'll dig in and I'll figure it out with you. I think a lot of times also the misconception around leadership is leaders take things on their own, and that's completely wrong in my opinion. Mm-hmm. I try to, with my dev team especially, I try to say, listen, you're never alone. You have a team here with you that's willing to work with you and solve this problem together. When we have huge technical problems, especially, it's like, hey, we need to get 3 or 4 people in this room. We don't need to get one. We don't need one person in this room. Yeah. And same thing with you. Like when we've had leadership discussions about how's this company going, where are we doing this? It's never a one-on-one conversation where we solve everything. Maybe we start the conversation one-on-one, get some ideas, and then we bring it to the rest of the board, or we bring it to the team, where it's like, listen, how do we want to go about and navigate this? And the issue there, or maybe not the issue is the wrong word, but the caveat there is with title comes some responsibility. Mm-hmm. So the director of product, I should be looking towards the product above all else. How do we make this product good? How do we make it quality? How do we make sure that it's the best thing that we can provide? And that's my number one priority. So I always have to use that lens when I'm looking through things. That's another conviction for me. If I have a title that gives me some sort of authority, I need to have that, use grace, use that lens where I'm always saying, I need to look at it through this way and be able to explain my opinions, my thoughts in that way, instead of being the whole person was like, this isn't my idea and I don't like this. This is something outside of my wheelhouse. I don't need to do this, that kind of thing.
I love that. When you think about your perspectives on leadership, and I've always really enjoyed hearing your thoughts, and we have a lot of offline conversations that not everyone gets to hear. But I'm curious for you as a person, has there been something that you've either read, studied, or have experienced personally, or even been under leadership that has helped you to kind of formulate the guides and the perspectives that you have as a person? Can you point back to any specific thing, or just a general thing, even still, that you might be able to impart some wisdom on the audience here?
Yeah. So I tried to do 4 Fs, but I couldn't get the last F. So I do 3 Fs and a C. I don't know if that works.
It's going to.
Yeah. I have faith, family, or faith, father, family, and then coworkers. I tried to work an F out with coworkers and it just didn't work out. So, but no, starting off, my faith is hugely important to that aspect of it. Being able to have a faith that's centered around a savior that is a servant shapes how I go about my leadership. Having a leader that's in my life that's saying, hey, listen, I'm going to sacrifice myself for you, is huge. Being able to have that humility and be able to learn from that is a massive help for me. Being able to, that's the gold standard. That is the ideal situation that you want to have for leadership. My father fits in that mold as well. He's the most humble guy I know. He worked, like I said, middle management for 30 plus years. He was always able to show humility in tense situations. And that's something that I always admire him for. Whether it was interpersonal stuff at work, whether it was actually just the work itself, whether it was his boss that was on him, whatever it was, he was able to pull himself back and be really humble in that situation. So I'm always looking for that. I don't think I've got up to that point yet where he was, but maybe a few more years. Family, marriage, and parenthood changes everything, in my opinion. If it doesn't change you, then I think you're a lump on a log or something like that. Like
nobody wants to be a lump on a log.
I mean, going from an extremely selfish young man to then being responsible for my wife, being able to help her around the house and being able to provide for her with a job and career, then going to having 2 boys where you not only you're third now, you're not even second.
Yeah.
It's being able to do that changes me, and it's also changed my outlook on how I deal with people, how I deal with situations and stressful situations. It's funny. I think my dad's humility at work shown through also at home, and I'm doing the same thing now as well. There's some things that still rile me up with my kids, but not the same stuff that riled me up 10 years ago. Cause it's just like, hey, we can show some humility and some grace in these situations. We're learning just like my kids are learning. So I'm okay with that. And then lastly, coworkers. So I talked about this earlier, but people are people first. Being able to lead a group of people that are smarter than me, that have the answers better than me, and being able to tease those answers out, that is such a weight off of my shoulder where I just have to direct. I don't have to have the answers. I can direct a team to say, give me the answers, then we can pick one together. It's a huge weight off my shoulder. And it's beneficial for the organization and for the team. Like I hate the idea. I would be very scared if Jake came to me and said, hey, you need to have the answers for these 5 problems tomorrow. I'd be like, I don't have any idea what I'm doing. But if he said, hey, the answers for these things need to be tomorrow, go talk to your team and figure that stuff out, I'd be like, sweet. I can actually engage other people, get the best ideas, the best minds on it. That's what I want to do with my workers.
I love that. I do. I think that's fantastic. Appreciate you being transparent in those things as well. You're going to hate my next question then. I have 5 things I need you to fix by tomorrow. Do you think you're going to get this done? Yeah, okay. The calendar's full. Sorry. You get that done on your own time. All right. So, believe it or not, we're coming close to the end of our time together. We've talked a lot about your insights, your perspectives, and also illuminating what we're doing here at Invo, right? That we're both a part of. What would you say, though, for you as a person, would be one of the biggest headaches when it comes to software development. And headache maybe isn't the right word. It may be a 4-letter word that we're not going to use on the podcast. I don't know. But what would you say is a frustration for you? And this isn't like calling out something that's broken at Invo, something that you see isn't working well. Just being real with us, with yourself, would you say causes you some of the most frustration or creates a headache in your life?
So one of the biggest benefits, but also the biggest pitfalls of the Agile methodology is change. Now, we want to embrace change as much as possible because we believe that when something changes and we can adjust to that, then that's the best path forward. But with that, priority and change are always at each other's throats. So I will set priority. Let's say today, I'll set priority for the next week for our developers or for a product launch or whatever. And I feel great for about 30 minutes because then something comes up. Either a request from a client or maybe a request from sales or a request from support or even a request from our dev team. Like even we are even baked into this because we have our own ideas and our own requests. And so as soon as something that seems like a set in sand, then something comes along and changes that. And so we have to readjust. We have to reprioritize what's more important. And we have to go through all those things that I talked about earlier. What's our rate of return? What's our impact? What's our cost? How long is it going to take? Is it going to impact one customer? Is it going to impact 10? Is it just going to be for internal use? Is it going to be for external use? All of those questions swirl around in my head as soon as somebody says, oh yeah, I need you to work on this.
Yeah.
And that is the most frustrating, but it's also the most beneficial part of being an Agile shop where we can actually do those pivots and we can actually change. So that's probably a cop-out answer just because it's like what frustrates me the most is actually one of our biggest strengths. But that is something that I have to deal with on a daily timeline. And it's kind of, gets in my crawl sometimes.
So how do you handle stuff like that? So for you, in I guess let me just kind of add some color commentary to what I'm going to ask. But I think that some of the most successful leaders that I've been fortunate enough to work alongside or have work for me have always had a clear path to how they get their mind right. And that's one of my favorite statements. And I use it with my kids too. Listen, you got to get your mind right before we can move forward. So when you're having those frustrations or those days of headaches or challenges, and which usually lead to a great outcome in the end, when you get out of here, you leave the walls of Invo. How do you, Andrew, as a person, like recharge? What is something in your time, in your personal time, that you're able to say, this is how I get myself back to square?
Yeah. On a daily take, I'll just say this, my commute. So living in Springfield, Missouri, our commutes are not bad. I know we'll have some clients and customers that'll be like, yeah, your commutes are nothing. And they're not. On a rainy day, it maybe takes me 15 minutes to get home. But one of the things I found during COVID was I really missed working that commute. I really missed the opportunity for me to shut my mind off from work mode and go to home mode. So that's number one thing, just from a daily perspective. That's something that I really like, is I like my commute. I like being able to drive, turn on some music, maybe some Hocus Pick, and be able to do that. So that's that. But beside that, what are my hobbies? What things do I do to unplug? I'm a very competitive individual. I know I'm passionate. You can probably tell that already, but I'm very competitive. It's waned a little bit because my competitiveness is now onto my kids with their sports. And so I don't want to be that parent that yells all the time. I'll leave that to my wife. She'll hate that.
She's not watching.
No, she's not watching. Yeah. But one of the things I do is all about sports. So watching my kids play sports has filled up my summers for the last 2 summers. That's something that I love to do. Sports in general, I love the St. Louis Cardinals. Even though right now they're terrible and they're selling everything off, but it's okay.
Still better than the Royals.
That's true. Sorry, Ryan. I love Notre Dame football. I was introduced to Notre Dame football when I was in college with a good friend of mine, and have been to a few games. It's a magical experience. And
it's magical.
It is. It's kind of like Disney, but better.
Oh boy.
So if you can go to a Notre Dame game up in South
This
Bend,
podcast is not brought to you by Notre Dame by any stretch of the imagination. Just want to get that out there.
Yeah. The last thing is something I do. I know people talk about working out a lot. I really prefer weightlifting. I'm really into Olympic lifting, so I really love to do barbell type of lifting. I'm a bigger guy, and I absolutely love that. It makes me increase my range of motion, show off strength a little bit, and as I'm getting older and older, it's getting more and more fun because I can just do that and satisfy all the needs that I have for weightlifting. So, and then the last one is a shameless plug for the Summit Invitational this year. I love playing golf.
Let's go.
Golf is so much fun. It is so frustrating and so enjoyable all at the same time. I tell people all the time, on a round of golf, I hit maybe 10 to 12 shots that I'm very proud of. And I usually shoot over 90 or over 100. So that math, check that out. That's about 80 shots that are terrible. But it's enough to keep me coming back. And I really love the opportunity. It's a mental game. It's a physical game. And that just really excites me. Also, I'm not competing against anybody but myself. So I can't really get mad at anybody besides myself, which I do sometimes. So it's okay.
I love that. I think that's hilarious too. Okay. So I have one more question for you, and then I'll wrap this time up. It's hard to believe we've already spent this much time together, and I think we could probably go for another couple of hours. But for the sake of the time, we'll keep it to this. So, one of the things that's really important to me is culture, and I have a saying that I've held close to for a really long time, which is, "If vision is where we're going, culture is how we get there." And we do a number of things at Invo that probably most of our insiders that know us really well are already familiar with, but maybe not. And so as we continue to kind of illuminate things that happen within the walls of Invo Solutions, one of those things we do culturally is called Team Night. And so Team Night was something that I brought to the company 5 years ago that started off really small. And we played some board games, we did some different things, and just continued to evolve to where now my budget line item is much bigger now going into it, and no one here is upset about that. But what I will tell you is, we have this quarterly, so it's something we do, and the genesis for Team Night, just for the listeners' sake, is an opportunity for us to get together outside of business hours to do something that builds team unity, that is team building oriented, that also allows us to play hard because Lord knows we work hard all week long. And this is a place where I hope that we make memories together, that there will be stories that are told for months to come. In some circumstances, we're still told stories from Team Nights that happened years ago. And so as we go forward, I'm always listening. I'm always like, what should we be doing that we're not doing? What are some ideas for Team Nights? So I'm going to issue you a challenge on the spot. I'm going to give you unlimited budget for an Invo Team Night yet to happen. What would Andrew Buchanan say our next Team Night is going to be?
All right. Man, that's loaded. All right. So I'm going to say it's an all-day event, not a team night.
All right.
First of all.
Okay.
We start off with a crisp round of golf in the morning. That's going to be great. Probably at Paynes Valley down at Branson because it's really expensive. It's Tiger Woods course. And then something that's actually hit me recently. So I just got back from vacation in Colorado, and my family did a UTV ride. It's basically an ATV, but it has 4 seats, and it's kind of a souped up one. And I would absolutely love to go mudding as a group and do an ATV race or a UTV race. I know that you and Ryan are both into the whole F1 circuit. We could do an off-road like rally circuit with UTVs. That would be excellent. I would love that. Followed by paintball, just so we can get some aggression out towards each other. Some pent-up rage. Maybe we have sales between sales or developers versus developers, or just all the developers against me. I don't know, something like that. Mm-hmm. Followed by a late movie, which would have to be, of course, the best movie ever made.
Okay, hold on. Everyone, get a pen out.
The Princess Bride.
Oh, I did not see that coming. Oh, man.
It has everything. People don't. It's clean. It's got action, it's got romance, it's got love, it's got Andre the Giant. Come on, how could you not love it? It's great.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I think he might have just spent all of next year's budget on that one team day. In fact, we would have to change the name. Right?
I love it.
It would
Team
be
day.
a team day.
Just team day.
You actually just gave me an idea. So why don't we talk about that offline?
I like it.
Is that
I
like
like
spoiler
that a lot.
alert? Yeah.
I like those ideas.
You and me both, man. So Andrew, thank you so much. Is there anything you'd like to share with the insiders before we wrap up?
I appreciate this opportunity. I appreciate you, the insiders that are watching this, and I cannot wait to see what Invo does, but also what all of our clients and customers do over the next years and decades and stuff like that. We're going to do great things and big things, and I'm here for all of it.
I think that's fantastic. All right, Andrew, thank you for your time. I'm so grateful that you shared this morning with us. You're so busy that you're able to carve this out. I think it was very beneficial for the insiders. And insiders, if you would like to learn more about Andrew Buchanan, please feel free to engage with him on LinkedIn. He is active on LinkedIn, so go find Andrew Buchanan from Invo Solutions on LinkedIn. Also, if you have not already signed up for the Invo Summit, which he gave a little bit of a plug for the Invo Invitational, the Invo Summit is coming up September 26th through the 28th here in Springfield, Missouri. We will have our first ever golf tournament to kick that off. You'll be hearing a lot more about that over the next several weeks as we build up. But if you'd like to get a chance to meet Andrew in person, he will be there, very involved, talking about what's going on within the product and also what's ahead in that future roadmap as well.
I'll bring my belt.
You better bring that belt. And maybe even those, I didn't think he had some sweet 90s sunglasses too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Can't see through those things at all.
In order for you guys to know if he comes through on that promise or not, you would have to be here for that.
100%.
So, absolutely have to. So, Andrew, thank you so much.
Thank you, so.
All right. And in the meantime, insiders, we hope you have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.